Hey everyone, I hope you guys are having a fantastic day today. Thank you so much for stopping by. I do know it's been a minute, a long minute, and I do apologize. Just, sometimes life just gets in the way. It's been hectic on my end, but finally have a little bit of more time now that freed up in order to be making these videos and just learning together with you guys here. So what we have today is an image gallery or an image carousel, and we're pretty much going to be doing it from scratch. I know there are some npm packages that you can download, and that's also helpful, but it's always good to know like how to make it from ground up also. So what we have here, as you can see, is the bigger image and the smaller thumbnails here. So if you're using it in your project, or if your clients, if you're doing work for a freelance or a client, if they want to showcase any of their photos, or if they have multiple photos or multiple lines of or columns of photos, it's easily viewed here, and it just looks from my experience, cleaner and yet effective. So as you can see here, if the user clicks on right, they'll be taken to the next photo and the next photo. And if you look at the active thumbnails, it follows what's on the larger picture here. So if you go back, as you can see, it follows it as well. You can even click on it and it takes you directly to that active picture. So this is going to be a great project to add to your website or to your clients' websites. So let's get started, guys. Can't wait. So one of the first things that we're going to do here is you're going to open up a new component or page in React or in your Visual Studio Code. And in this case, I made a pages component or folder, a pages folder, and then with a slide component here. So that way I can just use it strictly for here. So what we're going to have here is we're going to have, of course, you can, if you have like this, you can just type in RFCE, and then you can just choose that first one, and it'll come up the importing of the React there. Perfect. So now that we have this, the first thing that we're going to do, or the second thing that we're going to do, is I'm just going to input this data here that I have. And not to worry, I will make sure to have this in the description. That way you guys could just copy and paste it if you want to follow along. And the data here that I have, or the array here, is the pics. And we have, as you can see, the names, the original photos, which is going to be a bit bigger or larger. And then the thumbnails is going to be for the smaller photos that we're going to be using. So now that we have that, what we're going to do is we are going to use the useState hook. So we can just go ahead and import that just by going back to the import React here, and then opening up the curly brackets and just say inside useState, just like that. Now, what we're going to do here is we are going to make our current index state. So current index state. And just like that, we are just going to continue. We're going to say const, and then current index set current index equals useState. And then inside of the parentheses, we're going to have a 0 because it's going to be a fixed position. So this is what's going to tell us our current index in which, or photo in which, is going to be starting with 0. So when you first, or when the user first goes on to the site, or you go onto your site for the project, it's going to be starting from 0. Okay, the first picture. So now that we have that, the next thing that we are going to want to do here is make the function for the next slide. Oh, and just before that, I just want to add this as well. If you still have trouble just understanding the useState hook, what I like to think of it as, and I've mentioned this before in my previous videos also, is think of the useState hook as like a cooler. You know, when you decide to go to a beach or the park, you want to take your beverages. So you buy a cooler, you put in your beverages, your water, your juices, etc., etc. That way you can transport it, and once you get to the beach or the park, you can just take out your beverages and use them right there, right? So the same context goes when using your useState hook. basically you're taking your API or your data, which is this here, and then whichever one that you want to use, you can put it inside of your cooler, which is here just like this. And then when you want to render it, you're going to render it here. So think of this as the beach. You're rendering because you're at the beach, right? So you want to use the original photo. You just take out the original photo from your state or from your cooler. Awesome. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make the next slide function. So we're going to say next slide, just comment it out, and then we're going to say const next slide, and then just fire off the function just like that. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to say const next index. Okay, and then we are just going to put an equal sign and then parentheses. And inside of the parentheses, we're going to say current index because we want to be using the current index. And then we're going to say +1. And the reason why we're using a +1 is because this is to go to the next slide. So if we are on for example, if we are on the 0 index, we want to go to the next picture, which is going to be the second one here. We're going to have to add it, right? Because since it's a function, we just click the button and then we go on to the next one and then the next one and so on and so forth. So once we have current index +1, we're going to use modulo and then pics.length. And the reason why we're using pics.length is because we're using the length of this array here. That way we can kind of like go back on the last index here. And when the user or when you click are on the 5th photo and you want to go back to the first one, all you got to do is click the right, and then you'll kind of like come back or loop back to the first one. And don't worry if you're not quite understanding it. Once we actually have everything rendered, I'll make sure to come back to it, and it'll make a lot more sense when you have it visually in front of you. So now that we have the next index function, the next thing that we're going to do here is just say set current index, and inside of it we're going to just pass in the index like that. And that's it for the next slide. So in order for the user or yourself to go from to the next picture, you're going to have to make this function here. Awesome. So just like we did here, we're going to do for the previous. Now this is to go back, okay, in reverse. So we're going to say previous slide. And now we do the same thing, const previous slide equals, and then just fire off the function just like that. And then inside of the function, you're going to say const, not previous index, but previous, not next index, but previous index. So you're going to say previous index equals, and then open up the parentheses as well. And then inside of the parentheses, you're going to say current index also. But instead of using +1, because we are going to be adding, we're going to, in previous index, we're going to be going backwards, right? So it's going to be current index -1. Okay. So let's say if you are on the 3rd picture and you want to go to previous slide or previous picture, it's going to be taken away, or -1, which brings us to the second one. And then if you're on the second one, you click it again and you're going to be brought to the first. Now, in order to do the loop again, to go from first to back to the 5th element, you're going to do the same with the modulo pics.length, just like that. And what we're also going to add here is a plus pics.length. So what this is doing pretty much is saying your current index, let's say the current index is 0. So 0 minus 1 is -1. Plus the pics.length, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 elements in this array. So we have -1 plus 5 is equal to 4. So that way, and now we're using the index, right? So instead of, this is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so Now, when the user wants to go to the previous button, when they're at the 0 index and they click on the previous slide button, they will be taken back to the fourth or the last image here. And once again, not to worry, it'll make more sense if you're not understanding it too much. It'll make much more sense when we have it rendered here. So let's continue. So once we have this here, the next thing we're going to do is similar to here, set current index. So we're going to say set current index, and then instead of using next index, we're going to use previous index using this one here. Perfect. And just like that, guys, that's for our next slide function. And then this is going to be for our previous function. So now we are just going to go and render everything here. So let's just come down here. And then let's just erase this here and let's start. So in our div, we're just going to say class, make it simple, full. We want the width to be full, and then the height, we want it to be screen. So we want it to be the whole height of the screen here. So now let's just add an H2 and we'll say this is image gallery, just like that. Awesome. And then we're just going to add a little bit more styling to it. So we're going to say this is text 3XL. Let's make it a little bigger. Let's make the font semi-bold. And let's just drag it to the middle with text center. And lastly, let's just padding top. Let's just add it 6 here. That way we can just drop it down. Actually, let's make it a 10. That way we can just drop it down a little bit. Just like that. Awesome. Now what we have is we are going to make our image carousel container. And let me just do this here, image carousel container. Now we're going to have our div, and then inside of it, we're just going to say our image carousel. And I don't know why I keep misspelling the image carousel here, but okay. Image carousel, and of course inside you're going to have your div. Awesome. So what we have here is our image carousel container, and what we're going to say is we want to style it again, and then we're going to say we want it to be full. Let's just see how the full looks. So it's going to be full as well, and then we want the height to be, let's say we want the height to be 500 pixels. And of course, just to visualize everything, let's just make a border. That way we can see how everything looks. And then let's just make the border zinc 600. That way we can make it a little bit more. There we go. We pretty much have our image carousel container at the moment here. So now we can move on to our image carousel, in which again we'll do a class, and then we'll say we want it to be not full. Let's just say we want it to be let's say we want it to be 30%. I know that's too little. And then we make the height, let's make it full. Let's see how that'll come out. And then we have border, and then border teal 600. That way we can just see it here. Perfect. So you see it here. And let's just move this to the side. So we'll just go back to the image carousel container, and then we say flex, justify center, and this should move it to the right side, to the center. Awesome, just like that, guys. And now, instead of making this 30, we'll just make this, let's say 60, see how that looks. I think that would be good. Okay, so now if you want, you can just take out the borders here. Okay, and we'll just leave this border here for now. Perfect. So the next thing that we're going to do here is we are going to add the image. So we'll say image, comment it, and then we can make the image tag, self-enclosing tag. And then for the source, in order to render the image, we'll say source and then curly brackets. Then we're going to say pics, just like we have it there, right? So we have pics, and then we're going to use the current index here. Okay, current index dot, and then since we're going to be using the original here, we can just say original, just like that. And it should render perfect. Look at that, guys. Now it's rendered there. So the next thing that we want to do is we just want to make this go into have the same, pretty much the same dimensions as its container here. So we'll just say class, we'll say width full and height full. That way it can go and perfect. So let's just add an object cover here. Okay. And I'm sorry guys, but this is kind of bothering me, so I just want to add some space there. Let's PT5 and bring that down there. So now what we can do is just take off this border because you can't really see it anyways. Cool. And let's just round the corners. Let's say 2XL, see how that looks. Perfect. We can do that. The next thing that we are going to do here is we are going to get our buttons. So let's go ahead and do that. We can use our React icons website here. And the ones that we are going to be using is this one. Taking it here. So it's going to be this one here. Import the BS chevron compact left and BS chevron compact right. And don't forget to install the React icons package. And if you don't have it, you can just easily split the terminal here and just say npm I and then React icons, and I believe is -- save. And just in case if it isn't, let's just check it out here. npm install React icon save. Yep. So you can use install or I, same thing, and it'll still install. But since I have it installed, it's not gonna do anything. So I'll just erase this here. Okay, so let's keep it going, guys. We have our container there. We are going to make a left arrow. Let's just make a div there, and then we are going to make also a right arrow, and let's just make another div here also. Now let's just go to the top, and I'm just going to copy and paste this BS chevron compact left, since that's the first one, just like this here. So I have it there, and as you can see, it's small, but it's coming up here on the screen. And you can do the same thing here. So you'll say BS and compact right. As you can see, this one also comes up perfect. So as you can see, they're pretty small. So let's just go ahead and make them a little bigger. If you want to use two cursors to be able to write simultaneously, you can just click anywhere and then press Option on a Mac and just click on the next place that you want to write as well, and then just hit space and you can write the same time there at the same time. So we're gonna say size, and then I think this one would be good at 30. Yep, that one's perfect at 30. So now let's just make it a little bit more styled, and we'll just say we'll add a border to it, and then border zinc 600, we'll just add that, and then we'll say rounded full. That way it can be circular. Just for the fun of it, let's just see what 35 looks like. Yeah, let's go with 35 there. Now what we're gonna do is we are going to add a relative right here to the container. So we'll just go back up to the container. That way we can just position the left and the right where they need to be, on the left and on the right side. So we'll say right here, we'll say relative, and then we'll come back here on the div and we'll say class, make this absolute. And as you can see, this is going to go straight to the top, or actually right there. And then we can just say top 0. Now it's going to go to the top, and then left 0. So it's not going to move from the left 0 because it's already at the left 0. And the same we can apply to our right arrow div here. So we'll say absolute top 0, but instead of left 0, we're going to say right 0. You just see it come right to the corner. Awesome. So now what we'll do here is we'll just do it simultaneously as well. So we'll just say click, option, and then click again here. just like that. So now top, we'll just make this, let's say 45%, because we want it to the middle, and that, I think that's perfect enough. Yeah. So we'll just go to the left and the right here, and it's not the same. And then we can say, let's make this 15%, see how that comes out. I think that's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect there. And lastly, let's just add a cursor. That way it's just not the pointer, the pointy mouse there, as you can see. Now it's a cursor. Now lastly, guys, what we're going to do here is we are just going to add our function. So we can go ahead and do that by just coming to the div here, and let's add the on click, and it will just say, since this is the left arrow to go back, we'll say previous slide. And then we'll do the same for the right arrow div, and it will just say on click. And then we can say next slide. Since this is going right, it's gonna be the next slide. Just like that, guys. And now let's test it. Look at that. It's working for going forward, and let's try going back. Awesome. So it's looking real good here. Okay. So now that we have our image gallery here, and it's working, it's functioning well with the next slide and the previous slide, we are just going to add our little thumbnail pictures here. So let's go ahead and do that. So we can go back to the slide here, and then we can do the same thing similar here, and we'll say, comment it out, we'll say active thumbnail, like that. Then we make const active I can't spell thumbnail for some reason, and then active thumbnail, and then we're going to say set active thumbnail equals use state, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have a fixed position. Now that we have that, the next thing that we're going to do, just like we created a function for our next slide and our previous slide, we're going to do the same thing for our active thumbnail. So we're going to say thumbnail, and in this one I'll say const handle thumbnail click, and then just make the function. So this time we're going to say set active thumbnail to index, because we're going to be using the index, okay? And then inside of it, we're going to be passing on the index, just like this. And let's just make this, let's just add data here. You can just go back down here, and then afterwards, we'll just create a thumbnail, just like that. And let's keep it going here. So we're going to create a div, and then let's just style the div really quick. So we'll say W100 full, or you can say W full. It's going to be the same thing pretty much. W full, because we want it to be full. And then let's use H12% for the height. And let's add a border, that way we can just see border zinc, and then let's say 700. Okay, as you can see, it's right here. So this is going to be the container, that way we can move it straight to the middle here. So since we want it to move to the center, we'll just say flex and then justify center. So now what we're going to do here is we are going to map through our data that we have here, so we can use the thumbnail pictures. So how we go about doing that is just saying pics.map, and then double parentheses. So we're going to say pic and index, just like that. And then we are just fire off the function there. And then we're going to create another div here. Just like that. And then you're going to make the class, of course, but then for the class, don't forget about the key as well. And you're doing a map there, so we're going to say index. So now we are going to just make those parentheses into a curly brackets and then the ticks. And how I like to think about the ticks is it's definitely helpful when you're rendering or when you want to render certain data because it's type of manipulation there. So to the DOM. So if you want to open and close like a modal or anything of that sort, that'll definitely help you out as well. Or even like if you're doing dark mode and light mode, that definitely also helps out as well. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to add a cursor pointer. And then we're going to say mx2 for the margin. And then flex, justify center. And then we'll just add a duration of 300. Just like that. And then now we're going to use the money sign here and the curly brackets, and it should turn like a red color just like that. So now we're going to say active thumbnail is equal to index. And now I'll go over this as well. I'm just going to type it out here. So we're going to say question mark, quotes, and then colon, and then quotes as well. So what we're saying is we're using an if statement. So we're saying if active thumbnail equals to index is true. Remember, true is going to be on the left side and false is going to be on the right side. So if active thumbnail equals to index is true, we want this to happen. If it's false, we want this to happen. So what we want our thumbnails to do is basically once we select or once we land on a certain picture, we want that thumbnail or that picture's thumbnail to scale up or to become a little bigger. So let's continue here. So we're going to say rounded to XL, padding 1, and then items center. And then we're just going to have a scale of about 125. And then for the right side for false, we can just leave it blank since we just want it to stay the same. Okay. So now inside of that div, we can go ahead and render our image. So it's going to be similar to the top here. So we'll have our source, but this time it's just simple. It's just pick the thumbnail. And as you can see, looks a little bit crazy here, but not to worry, we'll have that fixed. So let's continue. We'll have class, and then we'll have this to 100%, and then the height to 100% as well. And then let's just have the border rounded to 3XL. Okay, now let's just add a scale of 50, see how that helps out. Okay, so we just added a scale of 50 to make it more smaller here. Last thing here, we'll just take out this border because everything's moved to the center now, and we're good to see how it goes. But as you can see, it's already it's highlighted. So this one, it's a little bigger, right? It like scales out a little bit more. So what we're gonna do here is just finish off, and we're gonna go back to this div here, and we're just gonna make the on click. So we're gonna say on click, and then after on click is the parentheses, and just finish off the function like that. And we're gonna say handle thumbnail, which is coming from here, right here. So we're gonna say handle thumbnail click, and then we want it to be the index. Okay, so we're getting index is not index is not defined. So let's just check it out, see why it's not. Okay guys, I got where the problem was, and it was basically it's not supposed to be on this div, the container, of course. So we're just going to take this on click here because it's not defined here, it's defined down here. So we'll just bring this up here and we'll paste this right here in this div. And now we shouldn't get that anymore. Okay, perfect. As you can see, it scales up a little bit more, or it gets a little bigger for the one that's active. So now what we want to do here is every time we click on next or previous, we want this to image or mirror the same image that's coming on in the big screen here. So we go about doing so is we just come back up and we'll say set active thumbnail to the next slide function, and then inside we'll say next index, and then we'll do the same thing for the previous slide, and we'll say previous index, just like that. And now we just want to be able to add one more thing here, which is here set current index, and we want it to be index, just like that. So let's go and take a look. So as you can see here, so we'll just refresh the page really quick. Awesome. So as you can see, we just refreshed and it brings us back to our initial state here, which is 0. And now if we click or go to the next one, it should follow. Look at that, guys. So it's following now, as you can see. Now let's go back. And it's following it perfectly, and the thumbnails are growing a little bit more to indicate to the user that this is the current photo that's being displayed in the bigger image here. So as you can see, and I know I said I will come back to this as well. So when we are doing current index +1, so we are starting at the current index. So let's say we are starting at the current index of 0. Remember, when we use indexes, it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Although there is an element of 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's always going to have an index of 0 because we're starting from 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's what we're using here. So if you can plug it in as well. So if we say 0 plus 1, we hit the function and it brings us back to number 1. Hit the next one, number 2. Hit next, index number 3, and hit next, index number 4. So this is where the modulo comes, because remember, modulo goes into 0. So at the 5th element, since there's nothing, it's going to just come back to 0, if that makes sense. And the same thing with the previous button as well. As you can see, we went back, and then let's go back again, and it brings us back to the beginning, kind of like the restart of the loop. So there you have it, guys. This is the image gallery or image carousel that we have for today. Please feel free to definitely use it in any of your projects that you want to showcase, any pictures you have or any freelance work that you guys are currently doing. It definitely gives it that simple but yet effective vibe to it, and you can put in as many pictures as you want or your clients would like. But it definitely helps the user, whoever's visiting the website, to know that, okay, I'm on this one here, and you can add a lot more photos here. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Please give it a like button if you enjoy the content, and I will see you guys soon. Thanks for stopping by.